The candle had gone out. The basement was now completely swallowed by darkness. For a few seconds none of us moved. None of us even breathed. The whisper we had just heard was still echoing inside our heads. "You came." Murad's hands were shaking. That was him," he said quietly. "That was my brother." Layla grabbed his arm. "Murad, your brother disappeared 13 years ago." "I know," Murad replied, but that was his voice. From the open doorway, the cold air continued to rise from the staircase below. It smelled strange, damp earth, rust, and something older, something that had been trapped underground for a very long time. Samir slowly took out his phone and turned on the flashlight. A thin beam of light cut through the darkness and revealed the narrow staircase descending into the unknown. The stairs were made of old stone. Each step looked worn, as if someone had been walking there for years. But that made no sense. "This place shouldn't exist," I whispered. "This house only has one basement." Murad stepped closer to the doorway. "Maybe we just never found it before." The flashlight trembled in Samir's hand as he pointed it down the stairs. The light didn't reach the bottom. It was too deep. Layla shook her head. "We shouldn't go down there." But Murad had already placed his foot on the first step. Creak. The sound echoed like a warning. "Murad," she whispered urgently, "if that really is your brother, why would he be down there?" Murad didn't answer. He just looked into the darkness and said softly, "Because someone put him there." The air suddenly became colder, and then thump, a loud noise came from below. All of us froze. "What was that?" Samir asked. Another sound followed. Thump, thump, slow, heavy, like footsteps, but they weren't coming down the stairs. They were coming up. Layla's voice trembled. "Something is coming." Murad stepped back quickly. The beam of the flashlight moved down the staircase. For a moment there was nothing, only darkness. Then the light touched something, a hand. A pale hand slowly appeared from the shadows and grabbed the edge of the stairs. The fingers were thin, unnatural, like they hadn't seen sunlight in years. Samir gasped. "Oh my God." The hand pulled itself upward. The face slowly appeared in the light. Murad stopped breathing. "Arda," he whispered. The boy standing on the stairs looked exactly like Murad's missing brother. Same eyes, same face, same scar above the eyebrow. But something was wrong, very wrong. His skin was too pale, his eyes were too dark, and when he smiled, his teeth were stained black. "Murad," the boy said softly, "I knew you would come." Murad stepped closer, tears forming in his eyes. "Arda, is it really you?" The boy tilted his head slowly, then his smile widened. "No." The basement lights suddenly flickered on by themselves, and when the room filled with light, we finally saw what was standing behind him on the stairs. Dozens of shadows, tall, twisted, watching us, and they were all whispering the same words. "The 13th night has begun." Murad's brother slowly stepped forward, and the door behind him slammed shut. Bang! We were trapped, down here, with him. The basement was alive. Not with air, not with wind, but with something older, darker, something that had waited for years in silence. The candlelight we brought barely cut through the blackness, and each flicker cast the walls into grotesque shapes. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting, crawling along the cold stone floor. Murad gripped the metal pipe tightly. His hands shook, but his eyes were fixed on the staircase. The pale boy, Arda, stood at the top, his expression frozen between his childhood innocence and something impossibly wrong. His eyes were black, bottomless, pulling me in, whispering promises I didn't want to hear. A soft sound, like distant laughter, echoed from beneath the staircase. The voice, our brother's voice, but distorted, hollow, unhuman, whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." Layla stumbled back, clutching my arm. He's not Arda anymore." Suddenly, dozens of shadows surged from the corners of the basement. They had been waiting for this moment, and now they moved with purpose. The air grew colder, heavy, almost suffocating, and I felt something pressing on my chest. Every heartbeat sounded like a drum in a tomb. The pale boy stepped forward, his voice calm yet terrifying. 13 nights. 13 doors. 13 souls. Tonight, The last begins. I froze. My mind raced. The cassette, the letters, the photographs, it had all led to this. The hidden room, the locked cabinet, the number 7 key, everything had been a countdown. The shadows reached the bottom of the stairs. They were tall, impossibly thin, and their eyes glowed faintly red. Each whispering, "The night has come, the night has come," Murad shouted, "We have to go." Now, we ran toward the narrow staircase leading upstairs, but it was as if the house itself resisted us. The steps seemed longer than they should be. The walls stretched and bent, shadows reaching out to grab us. Layla screamed as a shadow hand brushed her shoulder. It felt cold as ice, as if the warmth of life itself was being sucked out. At the top of the stairs, the basement door began to close on its own. Click locked, we were trapped. A low, guttural growl emanated from the shadows. The pale boy, Arda, but not, smiled again. His face shifted, his skin cracking like old porcelain. "Now you understand. This is what happens when you forget, when you leave things buried." Suddenly, the shadows lunged forward, faster than humanly possible. I swung the metal pipe wildly, striking one of them, but it passed through like mist. Another grabbed my ankle, my body fell to the cold stone floor, and I felt its icy fingers wrap around my leg. Murad screamed, swinging the pipe, shouting my name. Layla grabbed my hand. The shadows' whispers grew louder, overlapping into a deafening chorus. "The 13th night, the 13th night, the 13th night." I realized then, we weren't just facing a memory. We weren't facing a ghost. We were facing something that had grown from the darkness itself, nourished by years of fear and secrets, waiting for us to return. And then, just as a shadow's fingers grazed my face, the pale boy spoke, louder, clearer than before, cutting through the chaos. "You opened the 7th door. And now, the final truth awakens." The basement trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The shadows paused, all eyes on us. A single beam of light flickered from Samir's phone, and for the briefest moment, I saw it. A small doorway at the back of the basement, previously hidden, glowing faintly red. Behind it, faint, impossible shapes moved. Murad whispered, That must be where they're keeping him." My brother, and in that moment, I knew, the worst of the 13th night hadn't even begun. The basement trembled, dust fell slowly from the ceiling as the ground beneath our feet vibrated like something enormous was waking up under the house. The whispers of the shadow figures faded into an eerie silence. All of them had stopped moving. Every single one of those dark figures turned their heads toward the same place, the small red glowing doorway at the back of the basement. Murad saw it too. "That's it," he whispered. "That's where he is." Layla grabbed his arm immediately. "Murad, no. Did you see those things?" We barely survived, but Murad's eyes had changed. For 13 years he believed his brother was gone forever. Now there was a chance, even if it was a terrifying one. "I'm not leaving without him," Murad said firmly. Samir slowly raised his phone again. The weak flashlight flickered but stayed on long enough for us to see the narrow path leading toward the red door. The shadow figures moved aside, not attacking, not chasing, just watching. As if they wanted us to go there, and that made it even worse. Layla whispered nervously, "Why are they letting us pass?" No one answered, because we were all thinking the same thing. This felt like a trap. Murad began walking first, step by step across the cold basement floor. The shadows followed us with their black eyes but didn't move closer. When we finally reached the strange door, we saw it clearly. It was old. Older than the house itself. The wood was dark and cracked, and strange symbols were carved into it. Symbols that looked like they had been scratched there in panic. And right in the center, another lock. But this one was different. It didn't need a key, it needed a handprint. Samir frowned. "What kind of door is this?" Murad slowly raised his hand. The moment his palm touched the center of the door, thud. Something slammed hard from the other side. Layla screamed and jumped back. Another slam followed. Thud thud. Like someone was trying to break their way out. Murad's voice trembled. "Arda." For a moment, Nothing happened. The weak voice came through the door, barely audible. Murad? Murad froze. His entire body shook. That's him, he whispered. That's really him. But the moment those words left his mouth, the shadow figures behind us suddenly began whispering again, this time louder, more aggressive, their voices layered together into one chilling sentence. Don't open the last door. Samir turned slowly toward them. Why? The shadows leaned closer and answered at the same time, because what's inside is not alone. The door suddenly cracked slightly open by itself. A thin red light spilled into the basement, and from the darkness behind the door, two glowing eyes appeared, but they were not human. Murad stepped forward anyway, because the voice came again, weak, desperate. Murad, please, help me, Murad whispered back. I'm here. And he pushed the door open. The moment the door opened fully, the shadows behind us began screaming, and deep inside the hidden room, something enormous moved. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Adventure, mystery, drama, and a little bit of horror, stories of every kind are waiting for you. Do you love stories full of surprises? Then subscribe and don't miss a single twist or hidden secret.